Hello, everyone. Dr. Yonit Arthur here. You are on the Steady Coach, and it is my great honor today to bring you this wonderful success story from Carla. Carla developed 3PD, or persistent postural perceptual disorder, after a bout of vestibular neuritis in mid 2022. And her symptoms very quickly became chronic and highly debilitating. Fortunately, Carla found my YouTube channel and my course relatively early on after just a few months. And from there, she proceeded to make a miraculous and very rapid recovery. Carla today is 100% symptom free, and she's here to tell you all about her journey and how she got there. So please enjoy. And as always, if you enjoyed this interview, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. All right, Carla, thank you so much for being here. It is the biggest privilege to be able to sit down and hear your story like this. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's so exciting to be speaking with you and to be speaking with you because I'm actually feeling good,
I know.
Like,
I know. I know. I mean, maybe usually we get to the fun stuff at the end where people
Mhm.
share how great they feel, but
Yeah,
maybe we want to start there. How are you
maybe.
feeling?
I'm feeling absolutely great. And if you asked me, maybe not a couple, but 5 months ago or 6 months ago, I would probably be sitting here crying and saying how my life is so hard and I don't see when this is going to end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm having a really normal, fulfilling life right now. So,
Amazing.
yeah,
Amazing. Okay. So are you ready to share the story of how you got there?
of course, of
Okay.
course.
Okay. So do you want to
Um,
start though, but by just telling us a little bit about you? Who is
yeah,
Carla?
yeah, that makes sense. So like you said, my name is Carla. I'm 24 years old and I'm from northern Spain. I'm actually living here right now, and I graduated in fine arts and. I never really stopped practicing art, but right now I'm getting ready to work in a museum. So I'm preparing the exams for that. I also work as a nanny and have worked as a nanny for a really long time now. I can't even remember when I started.
Mhm.
And yeah, I've always been a really, I guess, calm, cheerful person, really into arts, into dancing, with a lot of hobbies, a lot of things that I like to do until everything hit and everything stopped for me. But
Yeah.
I guess that's a little bit who I am.
Yeah. And just even saying something here that's interesting, you describe yourself as a very calm person, and
Oh, yeah,
people
that's
think that chronic dizziness only happens to anxious people, and that is not
mhm.
true.
Yeah, that's funny actually because when this experience happened to me, it's when I realized I'm actually not as calm as I always believed I am.
Mhm.
Because like even though yeah, I've always been told by other people oh, you calm it down so much because you speak so slowly and your voice is so soft and stuff. And I also considered myself to be calm,
Mhm.
but it was more actually that I wasn't really in touch with my internal state. It was a very superficial calmness, but there
Wow.
was a lot of stuff actually boiling inside of me that I was just very scared to look at, I guess. So,
Wow. Oh my gosh, you're already starting to talk about the insights. Oh my gosh. So what you're saying is despite the calm exterior, you
mhm.
I mean, and not fitting the normal template, the normal stereotype of an
Yeah.
anxious person, there was actually quite a lot of turmoil, maybe even anxiety or something related to it on the inside. You just weren't even aware, and that's what
That's
made you
it.
so
I
calm.
wasn't aware at all, like
Mhm.
absolutely unaware of it. And like thinking about it, it makes a lot of sense because like as many of the people going through this, I had like quite a complicated, challenging childhood when like having like a really cool temperament and being calm basically meant that I could have a more safe experience, you know, like, yeah, like I guess it was just for me a really protective mechanism that I've had since I am small, to just be the one who is always calm, collected, who can like deal with stuff, who is never like exploding or like having extreme reactions to anything. Because anytime I had any time of emotional reaction as a child, it was met with a lot of anger or like disapproval, or like, you know, my parents would maybe like absolutely ignore me, not speak to me when things were going on. So I just had to be calm. So it's like natural that as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
I've kept this really collected, you know, temperament. But it doesn't mean just because a person looks calm. I always got from my classmates a lot growing up, like, oh, you look always so cheerful, so happy. It must be so easy to be you.
Mm.
But I was always thinking, no, you have no idea what's going on behind the walls, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Wow. So if it's okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to dig into a little bit more about how you started changing those things once we've talked a little more about the experiences you
Okay,
had.
yeah.
Can we do that?
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
amazing. As I
So,
think people watching this are going to identify with that too.
mhm. I don't know if it makes sense to, like, for me to share a little bit how I actually first got, like, hit by the dizziness. So that,
Yes,
okay.
absolutely. Let's
Yeah,
tell the story.
okay. So, yeah, I was basically in a very stressful period of my life, but at that
Mhm.
moment, I didn't even recognize that I was going through a lot of stress. But yeah,
And when was this?
it all began the day after my birthday, so it's like I can never forget. On July 24th,
Of
and
2022?
yeah, 22. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So basically, I was working as a nanny here in in the city that I've been living for a couple of years, and I was getting a bit burnt out. I wasn't very happy with my salary and stuff. And I was offered a job as a nanny in Barcelona for the summer with more of like a high network family. And like financially, it made a lot of sense for me to take this job. But the rest of the stuff was absolutely missing because like I do really bad in hot weather. I really despise being in the heat, and Barcelona is super hot. The working hours were crazy. And like, you know, deep inside, I didn't really feel like taking this job because I knew it was going to be like really stressful. And I had already been through like a very intense year of working a lot, studying a lot, and doing many other things. But then I was like, you know, maybe let's try it out because I'm going to have a lot of savings and then I'm going to feel so much like at ease in my life.
Mhm.
So I went there, I moved to this climate that I really despise. I met the family, and just from day one, I knew I'm going to struggle so much because I was working with like a 3-year-old and a 10-month-old, and the parents were working from home in a very open concept place. So this meant that for like 10, 12 hours a day, I had to be with both children outside of the house, like crazy heat, you know.
Ooh.
Yeah, like the baby, he was 10 months old, and he was really huge, like really chunky, cute baby, but
Mhm.
he didn't really like being in the stroller, so I was carrying him in the baby carrier with the stroller bag full of like everything for the whole day, like meals for them, swimming pool stuff, everything. I was all the time looking for shadow. And the 3-year-old, he's like, of course, not his fault because he was clearly struggling, but he's the most challenging child I've ever worked with. Like he was so aggressive and so violent towards his own family, towards me, towards the baby. And like seeing the family dynamics from the inside, I really get where all of these behaviors were coming from. But like it really was a lot for me to handle. And yeah, like it was just really tiring, really exhausting, like for them as well, you know, like it's not really ideal conditions for the children to be in.
No, to have to wander around for 10 or 12 hours a day. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, in the like
Oh.
summer in Barcelona, it's really crazy, you know, like
Mhm.
yeah, so I guess this was like the perfect kitchen for everything to cook up because my body was at a point that like I wasn't sleeping well because of the heat. I didn't have free time at all. I was like so stressed, so burnt out. I was like at this point. And yeah, basically I got sick with an infection. I still don't know to this day what kind. Like I just got like a very general thing like fever, sore throat. But this time, like something else was happening. That's like suddenly everything started spinning. I was like, okay, like this is not my usual experience of like, I don't know, strep throat or whatever. So, because I was also living outside of my region in Spain, I couldn't access my doctor. Like, I didn't have any kind of social support network in there. I was super alone. Everything that I did had to be done through the emergency room because I didn't have my doctor there. And in the emergency room, they were like, you know, this is not urgent. Like, there's nothing we can do for you because you are clearly not in a threatening situation. Like, just like go home, you know. And they gave me different prescriptions because I was like this for like maybe 7-10 days of like really intense spinning, like vomiting, feeling really bad. And every time they were giving me like beta-histine or like sulpiride or like stuff like that. And just being like, okay, you go home, relax, and you'll be fine. And I was like, okay, let's try. And yeah, I was very, how can I say, disappointed because I had planned a trip to go to Istanbul at this point, like a couple of weeks after this all started. And I totally felt I can't go in this state. But I like started to get better and better. I actually flew to Istanbul, had the best time of my life there. But because this was my first ever experience with dizziness, when it was time to come back, I started to get scared. Like, what if this happens again and I'm all alone? And like, how am I going to deal with this? Like, I don't want this to happen to me again.
So you felt better at that point. You had already
Absolutely,
recovered.
yeah. I was good. I
Amazing.
mean, I was feeling like a bit tired or like
Yes.
stuff, but I was good. You know, it was like maybe 7 or 10 days of really intense symptoms, and then like all
Amazing.
good.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then like 2 or 3 days after I came back from my trip, it's when I started feeling like a little bit unstable. Like things just feel weird. Like my environment feels not the same. I was like, wow, I don't understand what's going on. I just had a really nice 2 weeks out of the country. I was doing perfectly fine. Of course, I was back with the like children outside in the
Mhm.
sun in Barcelona.
Yeah.
And yeah, every day it kept getting worse and worse, like new symptoms, headaches, and like really strong nausea, like everything. And yeah, at this point, I started visiting some specialists like ENT and stuff. They were like, "Oh, yeah, like your ears look fine, like
Mhm.
everything looks fine." I did some vestibular testing. They were like, "It doesn't seem like you are going to fall, you know."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Yeah, that's true. I never at any point felt that I'm going to fall. It was more like, like a very hard to explain feeling, like really vague feeling of dizziness.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I finally decided to quit the job, go back to like the city where I'm living now in like northwest of Spain with like
Mm-hmm.
cooler climate, like family, friends, and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I came back here expecting that this would go away maybe in 1-2 weeks, but it didn't. And this just made me like more and more anxious, like this is when I really started to experience like really visible signs of anxiety. And yeah, it got to a point where I was like crying all the time, everywhere, like I couldn't stop myself from crying. I had panic attacks like constantly, like 2 times, 3 times, 4 times a day. I started getting like pulsatile tinnitus, like hearing my heartbeat on my head, like trampoline walking, like whatever symptom you can think of, I think I had.
Mm-hmm.
And especially I started feeling like very bothered by my visual environment when I
I was going
was,
to ask, there was
yeah,
a big visual component here too, right?
yeah, absolutely. Like when I was walking in the street, I was just literally crying my eyes out because everything bothered me so much. And I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't really tell what's exactly wrong with it. I was feeling like a bit fuzzy, dizzy.
Mm-hmm.
It was also like everything just looking so weird to me. And like I'm a very visual person. I experiment a lot with art and stuff. So for me, it's like I really take in the world visually, and it's like very important for me. And I was like, I don't know, like, can I live like this? No. And yeah, I had like the darkest time of my life, I think. Like, I was like, I'm so young. I don't feel like I can do anything. I'm just like, you know, struggling so much. All I want to do is be lying down, and even then, I'm not comfortable. And
What would happen when you lay down? What was it like?
I didn't really get an increase in symptoms, but they didn't either decrease. So,
So you had them all the time,
yeah, absolutely. It was so persistent.
24/7, like no matter what you
24/7.
were doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually doing better. At this point, I was working really part-time as a nanny in the evenings,
Mm-hmm.
and I was doing a bit better at this point, I guess because I was in an environment where I really had to look like I'm doing fine.
Oh, yeah.
Like my anxiety would hide a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but in the end, like it really was 24/7. And also at some point, I started getting so much derealization.
Mm-hmm.
This bothered me so much too because like everything felt so disconnected and like, yeah, now that I'm speaking about it, it's like wild to think about it because I can't even recall that well how this felt like at the point, but I know for sure it was extremely distressing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Did you have
yeah,
kind of a constant sense of movement? Like, so you said it was 24/7. Was it just feeling off, or was there a sense that your body was moving or that things around you were moving?
no, I didn't really feel like I was swaying. I mean, I did at some points, but like not so strongly. It
Mhm.
was more feeling like everything around me is like so fuzzy and like just like
Mhm.
off.
Mhm. Mhm.
And yeah, and when I was walking, it was like walking on clouds, trampolines, like
Mhm.
floor going up and down.
Mhm.
And yeah, it
Mm.
was like really, really, really dark. Like I didn't want anybody to see me struggling so much. So I started retreating from the world, and like
Mhm.
it became so small, like literally I had no life.
Mhm.
It's like I was doing like really basic things, that you need to do to function, but like that was it.
Mhm. And when was this, that the worst of it? So you said July is when it it hit?
Yeah,
And then by what point were you
I
living
would
this
say
life?
probably around October, November-ish were
Mhm,
definitely my worst months.
mhm,
I think it was kind of really cumulative, because it's like time is going on, I'm not getting better. I go to the doctor, they say there's nothing wrong with me. Actually, my GP, when I went to her to explain what's going on and ask for some help, and she was like, well, I don't think I can do anything for you, and I've never seen anybody struggling like you.
mm.
And I started crying so much. And she said, I don't understand why you are so upset. And
Oh
I
my
was like,
gosh. Oh my gosh.
he
I
was like,
know.
it's just a bit of dizziness. It's not that bad. I was like,
And the dismissiveness and the
I know.
gaslighting and the messages people get, oh my gosh, it makes it so much worse.
Absolutely, because I was totally feeling like I don't know what's going on and nobody can help me. Like
Mhm,
I'm going through something so strange that like nobody ever has ever gone through, or I don't know.
mhm,
And I think this really fits into the anxiety because since you can't really get reliable information from the professionals, you end up going in Google and like searching yourself, and you only find like the worst case scenarios and like
mhm. Is that what
like
happened to you? Did you find some of those Facebook groups and
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. And
Yeah,
you
like
saw
I
nothing but people saying, "Oh, I've been like this for 20 years and it's never gonna get better."
absolutely like I joined
Mhm,
one of these Facebook groups, like searching through Google. I kind of somehow ended up finding the PPPD thing, and I
mhm,
was like, oh, this really feels like what's going on with me. So I found some Facebook groups, and oh God, like I just wanted to cry even more reading those things. It's like they are not encouraging at all. It's like the exact opposite.
mhm. Yeah.
But like thanks to finding out like what's actually going on with me, I was able to find a vestibular physiotherapist,
Mhm,
like in a city that's not that far from my own.
mhm,
So this was when I started getting some hope because like I went to his consultation and he had dealt with many people going through the same. He
mhm.
had seen them actually getting better. And he was a really cool man. He was basically working both with chronic dizziness and like chronic pain and migraines and stuff like this.
I need to talk to him. You must
Yeah,
give me his contact information. Oh my gosh. Sounds
yeah,
like
he's a very nice man. Yeah.
can you imagine first of all, I just wanna point out, so
No,
you had to do this yourself. No doctor was like, "Oh, you should go to a vestibular therapist." They were
no,
just
no,
like,
no.
"Too bad." And you did the work on your own, and you're like, "I need to get myself a vestibular therapist," and you happened to find someone who works with
Yeah.
chronic dizziness and chronic pain.
It was about the time that I found your videos, I think, so everything
Mhm,
matched up pretty well.
mhm,
And at this point, I was so desperate that every like little amount of support I could get, it was like I'm going to get it because I can't go on like this.
mhm.
So I went to him, and he was like, "There's hope for you, of course. Like you can get better." And I was like, "Wow, I hadn't heard this before until now." And
Mm,
yeah, we were basically working a lot with virtual reality, which I don't think it really matters that much what you do.
mhm,
But he was like, I just like to use virtual reality because people get so into the game that they don't realize they are doing
mhm,
therapy. So
mhm,
they don't think about their symptoms. So
mhm.
it's not even about the modality or anything. It's more like whatever to get your mind off
Off
like
of
what's
it.
going on. Yeah.
And for your knowledge, they've done research on this, and for anyone who's listening and says, "Oh my gosh, in my area, I can't get virtual reality," the
No, that's
research
fine. Like,
shows that it doesn't matter, but like you're saying, the intention and the focus matters. And if
mhm.
I'm doing this head shake so my symptoms will go away, otherwise I'm gonna live with this for the rest of my life, then that's not gonna provoke the kind of changes that you
Of
want.
course, no, it was more like playing some fun games,
Mhm.
with like the glasses and the stuff. And he was like, I actually do this for chronic pain patients because maybe they complain that they can't move their arm up here, but then where they are playing, they suddenly go like this. They don't know. And then he's filming them with his phone so that they can see actually how much they move.
Wow.
They're like,
Amazing.
wow. So yeah, so it's kind of the same. You don't realize how much you are like actually doing. And yeah, I think I did like 1.5 months of therapy with him, and he was like, you are all good. I think you are already more confident. At this point, I was also like watching every single one of your videos and stuff, and also working a lot with my psychotherapist. So he was like, I think you don't really need to keep paying for this, like you can just use your life as your vestibular therapy. So
I love him. I
me
say that
too.
all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really good. And yeah, I think there were many factors that influenced my getting better. Like, as I said, I was just going for everything that I could try. But yeah, I was trying to do this in not in an intense, it needs to be right now that I get better way, more like I'm really struggling right now. And anything that's going to help me, I'm going to do. So I also went on an SSRI. I know that some people choose to, some people choose not to. Because I had like this amount of anxiety that I hadn't ever felt in my life. And yeah, at that point I was so desperate. I was like, I'm willing to try anything. And looking back, like I'm already off the treatment for like maybe 1 month or 2 months ago. I can't remember right. Yeah, I was basically on it for like 4 months. I'm not really sure it was worth it because like the fact that it takes some time to adjust, and like on top of the symptoms I had like the SSRI, like getting used to symptoms, and then it also takes some time to come off it, and it just may or may not have a series or side effects. So in retrospective, I'd say that it did take away some of the anxiety that I was experiencing, but I'm quite sure that I could absolutely have done without it. So I think it's just an option to consider, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary. And like, it's like so individual, and like, I guess for me, it was more like speaking with my psychotherapist and like with a psychiatrist that helped me to take the decision. But like, yeah, in the end, like, I don't think it was one of the key components in me getting better, like it helped a little, but it wasn't what healed me.
It can play a supportive role, and
Yeah.
you're illustrating a few things here too. So you felt maybe it was supportive, but also you were able to get off of it, and it wasn't life-ending,
No, not at
awful.
all. No,
A lot of people worry, "Oh, if I get on it, then I'm gonna suffer, and then I'm gonna be stuck on it forever," and it's not
no,
a
not
forever
at
thing.
all. Like I had almost no withdrawal symptoms at all. Like I had literally a couple of brain zaps one day, and that was it. Of course, like I tapered off really safely with the plan of my doctor and stuff, but it was fine. I didn't get anxious again after getting off it. In fact, now I can say that, like, I think I'm calmer than I've ever been in my life, but in a really authentic way. Like, this calmness is having like really strong foundations, which doesn't mean I'm not experiencing stress or difficult stuff or like hard emotions, because life is just life. But now it's like I actually listen to them, deal with them in an appropriate way, and not just stuff everything inside and pretend it's not existing. So
Wow. So, I mean, of course, everything you're saying are all of these things are things I talk about so frequently in my videos, but this change happened so quickly for you. So I'm curious, was right, we were talking July of
Mhm.
2022,
Yeah.
things got worse and worse and worse and worse, and then things started turning around after you were at your worst. You found the physiotherapist, he released
Mhm.
you, and then by early this year, you were
Yeah.
feeling much better. And I'm curious, what do you think played into how quickly you were able to adapt your emotional responses the way that you did, or your
Okay.
mindset?
So, yeah, it seems like it happened out of nowhere, but it actually was kind of a lot of work. And
Mhm,
for this, I'm super thankful for my therapist, my psychotherapist, because like she actually sat down with me to see what was going on with my life that made, you know, me not be able to process stressors or to deal with them so well.
mhm. And you
And
were seeing her before all this
I was
happened?
seeing her before,
That
but
helps.
like,
Yeah.
let's say that everything with her became much more productive after this happened. Like, she's so happy with me
Interesting.
now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because before I couldn't really access so well my emotions, but yeah, like in the summer when I was in Barcelona, I actually took a break from seeing her because we were at a really big distance.
Mhm,
And she actually said, if you have any problem, you can call me. But I didn't call her. So,
mhm,
yeah, now looking back, it's like, of course, I should have, when I was struggling, reached
mhm,
out for some help. But she basically helped me realize that my whole life I've been feeling every second of my day with stuff like work, studies, activities. Like, I really
mhm,
feel like I have to be doing a lot in order to feel like I'm a valuable, worthy person. And she was like, of course, in the end, you're going to explode if you don't have any single minute to sit down with your emotions, to rest. And then I realized it's like a very convenient way to avoid what's going on inside you if you're always busy. And it was really a challenge because I've been living like this for so many years, but I actually sat down and prioritized, like, okay, what is it that I'm doing with my life right now? And like, okay, right now I am working, which already takes time and energy. I am studying for this exam, which is really competitive and like it's quite a lot of pressure. And then another really important part of my life for me is my art because it's like the way that I have to actually express and like
mhm,
it's like my emotional language, I guess.
mhm,
So it's like, okay, I have these three things, it's already more than enough. I'm not going to stretch myself any farther away. Like, this is enough, this has to be enough. And it's so simple, but I can show you. I actually started color coding my planner. Okay. Because
Oh.
like, this helped me realize that I actually don't have so many blank spaces as I thought I did. And I actually started making blank spaces in my planner, like making
Mm,
sure there's space for this.
mhm.
And
Did you
but
view that at the time as limiting? Because sometimes when I tell people, "Look, if your body needs rest, it needs rest,"
yeah,
they feel like I'm saying, "You're debilitated. You need to rest because your body's not capable of doing more."
absolutely. In the beginning, I felt so betrayed with my body. I was like, why? Why would I even
Mhm,
have to rest? Like, why can't my body function just as it has until now,
mhm,
Like, why do I have to do less when
mhm.
I'm enjoying doing all of this much? But actually, like, maybe I wasn't enjoying it all that much after all.
Do you see that now? Like, does you can
Absolutely.
look back and say, "I was keeping myself busy because I was running from something,"
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Mhm,
And now that I'm like much more focused on the stuff that I'm doing and making time for rest, it's like, wow, I'm even enjoying more the things that I'm doing because I can put more of my energy into them and it's not like
mhm,
going in all every like 20 directions,
mhm,
you know
mhm,
and it's really difficult and I catch myself slipping back into old patterns quite
mhm.
frequently, but it's like, okay, I'm able to back off, say no when I need to say no, or actually be like, okay, I know I agreed to this, but looking at my calendar, I don't think I'm going to be able to fit it in, which is also hard because I have a lot of people-pleasing tendencies, but again, this also comes a lot into play. So
Yes.
yeah,
So it's really, I mean, again, it's so striking to me how you made this just 180 shift. But
yeah,
what I'm hearing is, and this is something I think I want to highlight, I think it's really important. When people make these shifts as I'm going to do this in order to cure my dizziness,
mhm,
it doesn't work out as well. It's
no,
not really coming from a place of self-compassion or connectedness. And again, I'm using those words, but nervous system wise, there's a very big difference in what it's like for your nervous system to experience you forcing yourself to take rest versus for dizziness, to solve this dizziness problem that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me, versus starting to build it into your life as self-care. It's different. Those are two different
absolutely.
states.
Yeah. And this was like a very integral part of my therapeutic process, like developing the self-compassion part that I was absolutely lacking. I was so hard on myself, blaming myself like it's my fault that, I'm dizzy and like,
Mm.
I brought this upon myself.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah, I was basically recommended to do some meditations. They are actually by Kristin Neff. She's an
Mhm,
author. She
mhm.
has some books on self-compassion,
Yes.
which are kind of helping you to develop like a self-compassionate touch and like some
Mhm.
awareness and stuff. This helped me so much. Like as weeks went by, it's like I really can't believe I was treating myself so harshly. Like I wouldn't treat anyone as harshly as I was treating myself. And then also, when you are trying so hard, like, oh, I'm going to like do all of this self-care in order to get better, it's like you are actually resisting.
Mhm.
And this is adding even more, like one more layer of stress into it. But when you completely accept it and surrender, as hard as it is and as much as it sucks, absolutely, like, okay, I accept that right now this is what I have to go through. I don't know how much it's going to last, like how long I'm going to be
Mhm.
experiencing this. But okay, it is what it is. I'm here with it. I'm staying in the moment. And actually, they're not running away from it. Like, it sounds really counterintuitive, but it's like you suddenly drop a weight, It's like,
Mhm. Sounds a lot like somatic tracking.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Like
But
being
also,
able to stay with it.
yeah, not just the sensations, but also emotions and other
hmm
stress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Was
then, like, I guess at some point I was already feeling better, but not symptom free.
Mhm.
This is when I kind of knew I needed to make my world a little bit bigger again, slowly,
Mhm.
slowly. Like,
And when was this? When did you start that process?
hmm, I'd say maybe, I'm not sure if around December, January. I remember the Christmas holidays were a bit of a struggle with like
Mhm.
just a lot of stimuli, like all
Mhm.
of the
Mhm.
lights, the crowds, everything. It was really hard. But
Mhm.
at this point, I was already going to maybe some family dinners or like meeting some friends for coffee, even if I didn't really feel like,
Mhm.
and engaging more in the things that brought me pleasure before, like painting or like, going back to my dance lessons and stuff. And all of these tiny little things that I was beginning to do, it was really hard in the moment to even picture going and doing them. But while I was doing them, I was feeling so good. Like,
Mhm.
like I didn't have any issue at all.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was like giving my brain little windows of opportunity to realize that I'm actually fine. have a normal life. I can spend time with my loved ones. I can do the activities I love. And this was very
Even
reassuring for me.
even if it didn't feel 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that's a big important point too. Don't wait until you feel great to start living your life again.
absolutely. Yeah. Hmm.
Just don't wait. People think, "Oh, I'll get to 90% and then I'll," but that's not it's actually the process of getting back out there in the way
Yeah.
you described, not just pushing through and ignoring, but saying, "I'm doing this as a way to teach my brain that it's safe. I'm doing this as a form of healing, as a form of of
Mhm.
of of helping myself." That framing of it makes all the difference to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And even as you say, if you don't feel 100% feeling that you are like an active member of society, that you can take part in life, in your own
Mhm,
life, it's like, wow. Because I
mhm,
guess it was one of my biggest worries that, I can't enjoy life anymore. I can't enjoy the company of my loved ones anymore.
mhm,
And just knowing that, yes, you can. And they love you anyway, even if you aren't doing your best. Like,
mhm,
you can go to a dance lesson even if like your head is like like this, it's like
mhm.
fine. It's
It may not be pleasant, but you've already done harder things.
yeah,
Just feeling
absolutely.
this way. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So you were able to somehow conquer your fear in a way that's very difficult for people. So what do you think contributed to that? To your ability to say, "You know what? I am gonna go out and do this thing even though I know it's gonna bring on symptoms." How did you
Mm,
what worked for you? How'd you do that?
I guess more than one thing, and I have to say I also used some strategies sometimes to kind of,
Mhm,
distract myself from the symptoms, even though I
mhm,
tried not to, but sometimes it
mhm,
was like, okay, I'm going to use.
mhm,
But mostly like very deep inside, it was like, going to this very deep, dark place that I had never been in, or actually considering like, is my life worth living like this? This made me so freaking scared that I was like, actually it had the opposite effect that I started feeling like I love life so much, like I want to grasp onto it
mhm,
as hard as I can. And if this means that I have to do something, even if it's unpleasant, I'm going to do it because
mhm.
like I deserve to have a beautiful, fulfilling life. Like it's not going to be pleasant now, but in the long run, it's going to help. So
So it sounds like you had conviction that you were gonna get better.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think
Mm,
that's the big difference, and again, talking about the things that went well or not went well, eh, some things went really well for you. You found that physiotherapist and you found the
yeah,
information on my channel that
on
explains
the channel, yeah,
early, early, like,
yeah.
really I mean, not that you didn't suffer, but it didn't take you 10 years to find it.
No, 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 it didn't. Luckily, I'm really thankful for that. But even if it had taken me 10 years, I don't think it's ever too late.
Yeah.
And actually, because I joined your community, and here I experienced the opposite of what you see in the Facebook groups.
Yes, exactly. It is the
And
opposite. Yeah.
it's a really lovely place that I I ended up leaving a bit before I was actually feeling really good,
Mhm.
because it gets a point in the journey where you really have to disconnect from all
Yeah.
of the busy content.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
And I encourage that.
while
Yeah.
I was there, it was so encouraging and beautiful, and I actually connected well with more people, but like really more deeply with two lovely girls,
Mhm.
Maria and Claire. I don't know if maybe they'll watch this at some
Who?
point.
Maria and Claire?
Maria and Claire, yeah, really sweet.
Mhm.
And we
Yes.
had a little WhatsApp group where we would share how we are doing, how we are feeling, but we really tried to keep it not so much focused on like, oh, how hard this is and how this sucks and how there's no way to get out of here. We tried to keep it more about like what's going on in our daily lives, how are we processing all of this stuff, what are we doing to like sit with our feelings, and like, yeah, just a little corner to share that we had. And
Wow, that just warms my heart so much because that really is so important. And people know this. That's why they go to those Facebook groups. They're looking for that. They don't know that that's what they're looking for, but they're looking for that emotional support. And they, in a way, they're actually getting it. It's just to have it's they're getting emotional support in a negative way. They're getting identification, they're part of a group, someone understands, but they get swept up in the negativity. Whereas if you're identifying with a group that has a different outlook, that support is an invaluable part of the recovery process.
Absolutely, and I'm so thankful to the whole community and to you, but like very specifically to them, because I felt really held and seen and understood because they were going through the same. So yeah, I know
Yeah.
they've also made so much progress, which like makes me so happy as well.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
super nice.
Yes. It's and I want to come back to something that
Yeah,
you
of
said that I
course.
think is really important. So you said a few minutes ago, if it had been 10 years, I don't think it would have mattered. I think it wouldn't have been too late. And I just want to emphasize this because, as you know, anxious people are going to watch this interview and they're going to be like, wait, how long did she have it? Well, this doesn't apply to me. And again, you were fortunate enough, thankfully, again, first of all, you had clearly already some framework for understanding the emotional components of stress. You must have already had some of that. It sounds like you were working with a therapist for a while. You'd built a lot of insight already. You were not helped by any of the physicians, but you got a great vestibular therapist who
Yeah.
immediately said, "Oh, you're going to get better. It's fine." Th- That is the pivot point. I mean, and then again, you were hearing messages from me. You're going to get better. It's fine. This is a normal
Yeah.
nervous system process. You got those messages. It just happens that you found them quickly. But whether you've had it for 20 years or 2 months, it's a matter of getting the messages. You just have to get the messages.
Absolutely. And even I have to say that like this approach has been so helpful in my life, even for stuff that's not related to dizziness. Like I kind of went through this before, but I wasn't conscious about it because I already mentioned, I think, in some of your Q&As or something, like
Mhm.
I was diagnosed with endometriosis like years ago.
Endometriosis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
I
is an
remember.
autoimmune
Yeah.
disease, which it's like usually it's like non-curable, like you can only manage, but like you can't ever fully cure.
Mhm.
And like I also had the luck to find a gynecologist with like a biopsychosocial approach. It's basically like on her webpage and everything. Like
Amazing.
yeah, and she was prescribing me, to do some strength training and meditation, yoga, and I just in general relax and like give myself time when I'm on my period and stuff.
Mhm.
And doing everything she said, I went from having like super, super debilitating symptoms, like I was struggling so much with like my ovaries, my uterus stuff,
Mhm.
to like almost not noticing that my periods are there anymore.
Wow.
Which like I just
Wow.
need a heating pad now sometimes, but it's not like I'm like crying in the emergency room asking for like an injection of strong painkillers. So
Wow. Wow. Does that surprise you now? Like that this has helped with that as well?
I mean, now it makes a lot of sense, absolutely. But it's like at that point, I didn't even think, like, I didn't give it much thought about this method of this doctor. I was like, okay, I mean, maybe it's just how it works for treating endometriosis in particular.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it really applied to the rest of stuff. And even now, when I get maybe a cold or whatever, instead of going to a place of freaking out, like, how long am I going to be sick? What if this is something else? I'm like, it's fine. Like, maybe let's look at the facts first. Of course, always go
Mhm.
to the doctor, see if it's something important. But then just not jumping into the most extreme conclusions of what it could be, and actually allowing my body to rest without freaking out about when I'm going to be healthy is making me heal so much faster from every single little
Wow.
thing. So
Wow. Wow. Again, it's just I see many people and I talk to many people and it's just
mhm,
so striking to me. I mean, again, you're not telling me things that that surprise me in the sense that
mhm.
of course these things are helping, but the fact that you've been able to implement them the way that you have in such a again, I'm not saying brief like it wasn't a horrible period of time, but to make that kind of change is just incredibly
And
impressive. I
it's really
mean,
uncomfortable at times, it's not
yeah.
easy. Like, it means having to sit down with many things that I've been ignoring for so long. But again, it's the question of, do I prefer to sit with these feelings that actually deserve my attention, however uncomfortable it might be, or do I prefer to deal with extra uncomfortable symptoms?
Yeah.
It's like,
The choice is clear, right?
yeah.
It
Mhm.
is, but you'd be surprised how often people will not I mean, they will choose symptoms rather than go
Yeah,
down
I
that
mean,
road.
I get it because it's so scary. And like,
Mhm,
your body is making you scared in a very, like, maybe not the most useful way, but it's just trying to protect you.
mhm,
But then, even if you start in very small doses of sitting with what's going on inside, it's helping so much. And like, now, when dealing with like non-sickness stuff, more like life issues, I also feel I've become so much more proactive because I'm not running away from the situations. Like, I'm actually dealing with them, which is really great because then the stress doesn't, you know, prolong in time. So
mhm. Yeah.
yeah, like, I wanted to say, I guess it's important for people to know that after I started feeling better, I did have a lot of really like challenging stuff going on in my life, like family stuff, like a family member getting super like terminally ill,
Mm,
and then like a breakup from like a 5-year long relationship and even more stuff. This didn't bring my symptoms back at all,
mhm,
like, at all.
mhm. Yeah.
It's like, even though at some points it was very emotionally difficult and like challenging, it was all right. Like, I didn't get dizzy again. No, it was just
Mm,
fine.
wow. Wow,
Yeah.
it's good that's such a good thing for people to hear too, because another common question is, well, and this is fed by the nonsense that people hear online or from their doctors. "Oh, it's chronic. I'm in remission. It's gonna come back." That's not that's I mean, you're gonna feel dizzy in your life.
Of
It's normal to feel
course,
dizzy.
but
Everyone
I
feels dizzy
think,
sometimes.
I say I've never been dizzy again, but I think probably I've had a bit of maybe motion sickness when going through like very, you
Right,
know,
because it's
curvy roads
normal.
or whatever, but like,
Right.
it's normal.
Normal. It's
Yeah,
normal.
absolutely.
Wow. So before I want to dig in a little bit more with your permission
Mhm.
to some
Of
of the
course.
other some all these pieces you used to get better. But
Mhm.
before I do that, just to clarify, it sounds like you consider yourself 100% recovered right now.
I would say I am, yes. I think
Mhm.
I mentioned to you in my email that I was having some other issues that I felt like I wasn't maybe 100% better, but I had like this deep feeling inside that this time it's really something physical.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, you know what? There's only a way to discover it. Let's go to the doctor, but like,
Mhm.
not go to the doctor freaking out, like, please find like what's going on and cure me.
Yeah.
No, I was just like, I am feeling a bit more fatigued than usual, and like my blood pressure is low and stuff. And yeah, she just ran some blood tests,
Mhm.
and I was deficient in ferritin.
Mhm.
And since I started taking some supplements for that, it's like I'm so good. It's
Yeah, you're fine.
great, yeah. And actually, the
Right.
doctor said I probably became deficient because maybe I've been through a very stressful period of my life, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess like the general stuff applies, like check that you don't have any deficiency,
Right.
like prioritize rest and drink water, do some exercise. Like
Mhm.
that's maybe if you are feeling, let's say, like 95 or like really good, but not 100%, maybe sometimes it's like the thing that can like really make you say, okay, it's good now.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Okay. So it doesn't mean that you're never gonna get sick, and it doesn't mean
Of
that you're never
course.
gonna actually have
Yeah.
a medical problem, but you didn't immediately jump into, "I'm gonna oh, no, it's back, and this is a new thing. We're just gonna get it checked out, and if it's not, then we can let it go."
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you had sounds like you also went into that with more agency, like, "If
Mhm.
this is symptom drift, then I know what to do. I know I have
Yeah.
confidence I can
Mhm.
handle it."
Yeah, like right now, I can't say for sure, like, am I going to get something like this again in my life? Like, how can I know? I can't really know, but I'm
Mhm.
not really
Not afraid.
scared, yeah, because
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
if it's worked once, I know it's working twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's and it's and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. When
Mhm.
people are told you're going to go into remission and you're gonna have it happen again, or maybe then they live in fear and avoidance, and that
Mhm.
actually makes it more likely that something like this is gonna happen again.
Absolutely, yeah.
When they
Mhm.
and then or conversely, sometimes I see people who just spontaneously get better,
Uh-huh.
and that's wonderful, and I love that, and let's I mean, however you get better is fine, but when that happens spontaneously and you don't know what you did to get better, you
Mhm.
are also more likely to live maybe with the fear in the background, but there's gonna be some voice in your head that says
Mhm.
anytime there's a new symptom, "Is it back?" Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess also I'm not scared because I'm actively, doing things in order for my body to feel okay. Like
Mhm,
before, I wasn't doing this, so
mhm.
it's like
Tell
okay,
me more about that. What kinds of things
yeah.
are you doing?
Like of course, I'm still going to therapy, and I feel like I'm going to be going for a really long time because
Mhm,
you know I just feel like I've really been through a lot, even though for so many years I just dismissed it and was like, oh, that's how it was. So
mhm,
I feel really lucky that I get to work with this therapist, even though every time we see each other less frequently because
mhm,
there's less need for it. But I think it's really helpful to have somebody with whom you can like kind of really debrief, what's going
mhm,
on emotionally in your life. And then I also basically made a list of things that make me feel safe, relaxed, and I'm trying to sprinkle them throughout my week. And some of them are like more time consuming or like harder to do. Like for example, I really like going to the hot springs or to sauna, which you can't
mhm,
do every day,
mhm,
but I do from time to time. But then I have really simple things like just having a really warm shower with essential oils, or like just even some body brushing, or like a cup of herbal tea, or like I don't know, some quality time with friends. Like also in every moment you kind of see what it is what you need. Sometimes you need like more active rest, sometimes more
mhm,
passive. In my list there's also like just closing my eyes for 15 minutes and like letting my brain rest. So I try to kind of organically implement some of these things when I can,
mhm.
when I feel I need to. And what else? Generally, I guess that, yeah, really prioritizing in my life and setting boundaries about my time.
I was gonna ask if there are any
Like,
boundaries involved in this routine.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, amazing. Yes,
Yeah, with family especially, which is like the hardest people to set boundaries with.
and to say no and to
Yeah,
yeah, not feel guilty about
absolutely. But also
mm,
with others, like right now, like I said, I have going on like my job, I have
mhm,
my studies, and then I also have my own personal ceramic project that I'm working on, which I'm
mhm,
really excited about because before my energy was so scattered that I could never really do something so like let's say, coherent with, like, how can I explain? Something that would actually develop into an exhibition, because I
Mhm,
was just doing too many things, but now
mhm.
it's like it's actually happening, which is so exciting for me.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. But yeah, it's like, okay, I realize I have these things, and then other than that, I'm having to say no to many proposals. Like, maybe my boss is asking me to babysit Friday night. It's like, well, I'm sorry, I would love the money, but
Mhm,
I would also love to rest, you know?
mhm.
Or, yeah, just in general, like, I was offered to give some workshops about weaving, which I also really love, but I was like, it's a lovely offer, but I think maybe it has to be in a few months. It can't be right now. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's not easy saying no to things that you really want to do, but
Yeah.
in the end, it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just love hearing this from you, and I love hearing it from you, and I know I get for this reason, and I know I've said this before already in our conversation, but just for people to hear, it's not you don't have symptoms. It's not symptoms or fear of symptoms that's limiting you. It's not a
Mhm,
limitation. It's it's caring for yourself and caring for your body and
mhm,
sticking to your boundaries and not allowing yourself or your own nature of wanting to people please or be a perfectionist take
mhm.
over and drive you to do things that aren't working for you, whatever that means.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, of course, I think I said before, sometimes you are going to mess up and maybe agree to something that you don't really have the time or the energy for. Or,
Mhm,
like, suddenly you are in a place and you realize, like, I'm so tired. And I think it's being able to recognize that it's not the end of the world if, like, you know, you suddenly leave a situation that you are just not comfortable, or, like, you don't have the energy for, or, like, having to maybe go back to somebody and say, I'm not committing anymore.
mhm,
In the beginning, I was like, what does it say? What does this say to me, like, of me as a person? But it's like, it doesn't really say that much of me as a person, just that I care for myself, I honor myself, my boundaries. And when I show up somewhere, I want to show up, like, with my whole presence, and, like, with actually the resources to be there. And
mhm,
if I don't have them, then it's like, what am I going to do it for? It doesn't make any sense.
mhm. Yeah, see, so there's a process of self-discovery that you're describing that I
Yeah,
mean, you mentioned your therapist being very happy with you because it sounds like, in a way, the dizziness kind of forced some of this on you, some of these changes.
absolutely. Yeah, it's like, I can't believe something I hated so much, but now I'm so thankful. Like, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Like, I
No.
really hope that people don't have to get to this point to actually having a look at what's going on in their life, at what they can do to feel better. And I guess I had some signs before the dizziness. Like, last year, I was really struggling because from some point in the evening, let's say 7 p.m., every single day I would get, like, strong headache.
Mm,
Like, I would feel so overstimulated. I needed really low lighting. I would start crying so easily.
mhm,
And this is actually the point when I started going to therapy. When my therapist told me for the first time, you have too many things going on in your life. Your brain doesn't have time to actually decompress, rest, and it's like your nervous system is just so overactive that by that point at night it's like shutting down.
mhm,
So, yeah, I did start implementing a little bit of self-care here and there at that point, and I did get better from these issues.
mhm,
But then, I guess I just didn't do it long enough or give it the importance that it actually has. I was like, oh, fine, I'm doing good again. I'm just going to keep on with my life as I was before,
mhm.
without stopping to rest or, like, stopping to see how I'm feeling. So,
And it sounds like you
yeah.
you look at the dizziness now as a message,
Yeah.
from your body that whatever it was that you were doing was not enough, was not
Yeah,
adequate.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And now it's like it's so good for me because I actually stopped to consider like what do I actually want from my life in like, terms of work, terms of like the things that I do in my day to day, who do I want to spend time with? It's like, this stuff really matters now, and it always mattered, but it was more that before it was more in like a second place, because in the first place there were other people that I was prioritizing instead of prioritizing what I need.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, now I feel that I have so much more agency and the choice, and like know that I can actually decide what I want to do with my life and what I enjoy and what I need. And yeah,
Mm.
I'm not sure would I get to this point without going through this. I can't know, but it's the way that I had to like get to here, so I'll take it.
Mm-hmm. Well, what keeps running through my mind is
Yeah.
when I end up really sitting down and talking to people who are going through chronic dizziness now, it is not the first time that their bodies have spoken to them in this way. And I'm not trying to make that a metaphysical statement. I mean, there have been signs previously that things were not okay, that things were too stressful, that something awful was going on. They've had sleeping problems, or they've had pain, or they've had headaches, or they've had fatigue. It's not their first rodeo, as we say here in the US. Um, but the dizziness really is so debilitating that it's the first thing, and I hear
It's
this from many
really,
people, it's the only thing that ever made them stop what they were doing.
and I identify so much with this because for me, I was thinking sometimes like I would prefer anything else other than dizziness, and I would deal
Yeah.
with it and go on with my life. But that's exactly the problem, that if it were any other thing,
It wouldn't have
I would
stopped you.
have, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow, so much to unpack from this conversation. So, what advice do you have to people going through this right now?
Okay, so I would say that like the most or one of the most important things is to actually develop, if you haven't already, like some sense of self-compassion. Like this should absolutely be a priority because there is no sense in going through this, which is already so hard by itself, while punishing yourself and like treating yourself badly. And yeah, like this absolutely really helped me. And then I would say probably, you know, if you feel that your world has become so small, actually beginning to make it bigger again, and finding the people with whom you feel safe, you feel cared for, you feel loved, doing things with them, going back to doing things in like society, feeling that you are part of something. And if there's something that you are really passionate about, being like music, reading, art, whatever, like do it, don't stop doing it because it's going to be really nice. Like it's going to feel nice. Maybe not all the time, but I guess it
Mhm.
really helps. And in the end, all of those hobbies or creative activities, I think they are languages of their own. So I guess for many of us, people that we end up in this situation, that we struggle a bit or a lot with emotional expression, it's like, if you have a channel, use it. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
what can I say? Like, if you feel that you release a lot of what you're going through music, through art, through whatever, like through knitting. Knitting really helped me at some point because it was a bit more automatic. I didn't have
Mhm.
to focus so much. Like, absolutely do it because,
Mhm.
yeah. And if somebody feels like they really aren't the creative type or whatever, just find your channel, whatever it is. It could be writing, speaking with somebody, but like just don't battle everything up inside because at some point it's just like logically going to explode.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you describe what I think of as kind of the pillars of recovery: joy, connection, movement, all of those. You just covered all three of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you mind, I know we are gonna have to say goodbye soon, but
Okay, it's
before we
fine.
go, would you mind saying a few more words about the process for you of emotional expression? Because that's something people really struggle with, especially when they've been through, you mentioned having a very tough childhood
Yeah.
and having all these other coping mechanisms like people pleasing and perfectionism and all those other things that were kind of managing your life. So how
Mhm.
did you how did you get some space from that, and what did you do to let your emotions out? What did that look like? What did that feel like?
Okay, so I think it looks like many different things all at once because
Mhm,
at many different points there's many different ways to like
mhm,
be there with your emotions. But what for me helped so much was like, well, first of all, being together with my therapist because it's like
mhm,
a safe space. You have another person there who's like holding space for you. And you know how they say that trauma is relational, then healing also must be relational. So for me, at some points that some things were really very scary to sit with on my own, it's like, okay, I don't have to. I'm sitting with them with a trusted personal person.
mhm, mhm,
And then more on my own, I guess like meditation really helped me, guided meditation,
mhm,
like the self-compassion ones, and
mhm,
also
mhm,
some other few ones that I can maybe send you links to if you're
mhm. Sure,
interested.
and I'll put them in the video description.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm,
And yoga really helped me too because sometimes, like when you have a lot of anxiety going on, actually sitting down is hard, but it's kind of movement and meditation together, so
mhm,
it's really helped. And then the biggest thing for me has actually leaving blank spaces in my planner because this is something that I didn't do before, and
mhm.
then now it's like emotions actually have space to present themselves to me
Wow, what
at
an
some
important thing.
points, you know,
Yeah.
instead of suddenly everything like busting. It's like, maybe I have some free time and I'm like, oh, I'm actually feeling a bit nostalgic or a bit
Mhm,
sad, or like sometimes it's more physical, like, oh, I'm dehydrated and I didn't realize,
mhm,
or
mhm,
like something feels heavy right now, and it's having the time, like with nothing planned, that it's like actually allows them to present themselves to me,
mhm,
and then
mhm.
I have like the job to stay with them and not run to do something else.
That is, such good advice. Yeah, it just giving even just giving yourself the time and space to and the focus to not have your mind on 15 other things that you're doing, and I would add
Mhm.
for people who are dealing with symptoms to gently ask this all the stuff around the symptoms to step aside for a little bit so that
Yeah.
you can just you can examine your life and it out of the context of
Mhm.
trying to get better from chronic dizziness.
Yeah. And I have to say, this is also like super specific and might not work for everyone.
Mhm,
But when I had like this very big thing happening in my life, which was like my breakup after such
mhm.
long time,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I know this is something that's going to bring up many emotions, a lot of grief, and I really need to find a healthy way to deal with it. And I know it's going to be a long process. It's not going to be done in 2 days. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give this the focus that it deserves. So I actually, like the ceramic project I'm working on,
Mhm.
it's actually having to do with this. It's called 100 Spoons to Heal a Broken Heart.
Mm.
So it's actually me making 100 spoons while I'm, you know, giving myself the space to process all of the feelings and the heartbreaks.
Mm.
Sometimes I'm making spoons while I'm crying. It's
Mhm.
like, a little way to actually give space to this really big thing instead of just going on with my life and like ignoring it, putting it in the background. It's like, no, I'm sitting down with my spoons. I'm like feeling everything. So I guess if there is something actually like bigger going on, just find a way
To honor it.
yeah, absolutely, because it deserves it. So
That's
yeah.
also such important advice, because our society is such like a doing society. There's very
Mhm.
little focus or emphasis or space provided for just being, and that's what emotions need. They're not necessarily telling you to do. They're telling you to
Yeah, and
sit down and get
this
the
was
message.
so hard for me to understand because I was like,
Mhm,
what am I supposed to be with this sadness? And you don't have to do anything, just like be with it, you know.
mhm, mhm,
The more you try to do, like the stronger it's becoming because it's like shouting, please don't do anything about me, just stay with me.
mhm,
And
mhm. Yes. Oh, that's brilliant and very important, because many of the people who end up with this issue are suffering from chronic symptoms because of grief, because of loss
of
too. And
course, I mean, it's a really big thing in life. Yeah.
yeah, and well, and they feel pressure to have a time limit. They're often told
Mhm.
you should be over it by now. You got to move on with your life. It's better this way, or they get told all sorts of just ridiculous things like that. And it is what it is. It deserves it. The only way out of it is through it, and
Mhm.
there's no way to just to will it out of existence. So
Yeah, absolutely.
mhm,
So I'd say, like, if you really have something big going on, even just setting 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day when you are checking in with yourself and asking, oh, how am I feeling about this? Like, what's
mhm,
going on inside me? What do I need? Can I ask for some help? Or, like,
mhm,
is there something that, like, I need right now? Maybe rest, maybe space, or like connection, whatever. Like, just,
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that.
Mm,
Mhm.
great advice. Well, thank you. Again, I
Thank
was
you.
so excited to finally get to talk to you after being part of your journey, and so
I
it's
really
just so
hope this will make some sense in the end
mhm.
because I feel like we were non-linear at all, but
Oh, yeah. Well,
I guess it's
I
fine.
yeah, yeah. No, that's I think there's so much to talk about. The
Mhm.
story was linear, the story of the symptoms, now you got
Yes.
better. Were linear there, but
Mhm.
then there were a lot of other things that came up, and that's how all of these
Yeah,
interviews go. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
That's
I
the
think it'll
beauty
be
of it.
helpful.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much
Thank you so
for agreeing to
much.
do this, and I I it's just go live your life. I mean, keep doing what you're doing. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm living my best life, like napping on the beach. This is something that years ago I wouldn't allow myself to because it's like so lazy. But like,
Right.
I'm like, I'm really happy with where I'm right now. And I'm really thankful that I found you and that we could connect because you were such a big part of my recovery. And
Mm,
yeah, I'm
absolutely.
just so happy that other people can also find you and find all of this information that's, not given out by the doctors usually. And
Yeah.
they can have some hope that everybody needs, deserves. So thank you.
Yes. And your story will help. Every story, people
Mhm.
say there was just a different piece of this one that really resonated, and there was a piece of this one that resonated. So
Mhm.
I hope people who hear this can find some of themselves in your story and know that you're I mean, here you are. You're fine. You're living life
Mhm.
and symptom free. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. And for anyone watching, if you have questions or comments, please drop them below. And if you have specific questions for Carla, I will pass them on to her. So thank you all for watching. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Carla.
Bye.